You're listening to Shane Hewitt and the Night Shift on the iHeartRadio Talk Network.
Throwback Thursday here on Shane Hewitt and the Night Shift. Thank you for being here. 71010 is the text line. Where were you? How old were you? What were you up to in 2003 for our Throwback Thursday? Text says, in 2003, I was 2 years old living in Oakville, Ontario. Now I'm in Ottawa and I love talk radio. Katie. Thank you, Katie. Appreciate you being here. Joining us in conversation right now, we're going tech. Kris Abel is here, tech nerd. Hey, Kris.
Hi, Shane.
Where were you in 2003, my man?
In 2003, I think I was in Detroit, Michigan. I was with the Canadian Alpine skiing team. I was in General Motors' wind tunnel wearing an experimental alpine skiing suit and being blown with lots and lots of wind.
Wow. Were you a skier? Did I not know this?
No,
you were just part of the tech.
I was basically Discovery Channel wanted to do a story on this new experimental suit, but the coach of the Canadian Alpine team refused to have any of his athletes wear it just because it could have gotten them in trouble at the Olympics. So they needed a volunteer to put it on and go strap themselves into this wind tunnel and subject themselves to the whole experience. And I volunteered, so I went and did it.
That's fun. What a cool story, eh? What do they call it? Like a stuntman. Well, not only a tech expert, but also a stuntman for really tight suits. Did you keep the suit?
No. And it was a very revealing suit as well, as you can imagine.
I bet it was. You put that one on and you're like, oh, wow, I can see everything.
But I remember it being about 2003 because when they handed me the video footage, it was a VHS tape.
Very good.
Very early days.
Very early days. All right. Well, VHS tapes is not what we're talking about today. We're talking about AI and Google. Google's got some new toys coming out, which is kind of interesting to see who they've decided to compete with.
Yes. So they have a new family of smartphones. This is the Pixel family of phones. Every year they come up with a new array. There are 3 new ones this year, the Pixel 9 family. And so basically, they've all gotten a little bit of a bump in the price. They're a little more expensive. They start off at $1,100. They are a major upgrade in terms of not just processing, but also the design. It's a little bit more flat on the sides, and there's much more of an emphasis on the lenses to make it be more like a camera. But the best part is that they've introduced more artificial intelligence, Gemini. And so 2 features that are really, really cool with these Pixel 9 phones. The first is called screenshots. If you got my habit that as you're surfing the web, anything of interest, you go, oh, save that for later, I'll take a screenshot. You end up with a whole pile of screenshots that are difficult to sort through to get the information. The artificial intelligence will go through and shake out all the dates, all the prices, all that kind of information, and then make it available that you can ask the AI, hey, how much was that thing that I grabbed a screenshot of? How much is the location of this place I'm looking for? And it will give you the answers. And then the second is called Call Notes. It will record your phone calls and then create a text transcript of the conversation you just had. And again, sift through it and pull out all the relevant details, any kind of dates, any information, and then make that available so that you can ask questions and it will retrieve that information for you much, much later.
Okay, that is cool. That is terrifying because typically you have to sort of acknowledge the fact that you're recording private conversations. And that would be pretty great, though, if you were, talking to the boss and the boss was like, hey, Kris, we got a bright future with us. Within 6 months, you're going to be making $400,000 a year. We're going to promote you to be the boss of the Boss Network and all that stuff. And then all of a sudden you've got a transcript of what somebody said. I think of when you call customer service somewhere, that could come in handy because they always say, we're recording this for training purposes, which is not really for training. It's more for accountability. And if you're a jerk, they can not do business with you. If it was used in a good way, it could really turn the tide, if you will, turn the table on some customer service.
Totally. I mean, it's like any piece of technology. It depends on its use. There's good uses and bad uses. In this case, because it's about shaking out raw information, I think that it becomes more useful towards scenarios like you just described, rather than trying to spy on somebody else. So I think there is kind of a lean towards that makes it valuable in the long run.
Isn't that funny? We were all texting. And then now we have video calls. My son doesn't even make audio calls anymore. He only makes video calls. He doesn't text much. He'll just phone you. And then now we're going backwards in time where we're like, hey, by the way, you can have all of your conversations out in text, right? Like we've actually gone backwards in time again.
You got it. And the other thing to add in terms of what Google announced is that they've announced their second foldable phone, meaning a phone that's got a screen that phones. This is important because they announced the first one last year and didn't launch it in Canada. And it became the big gadget in the United States. And so us Canadians had to sit there and just listen about the damn thing. This year, for their next generation, they're actually launching it. It'll launch next month. It's going to be very expensive as expected, about $2,400. But I'm here to tell you, I've had my hands on it, and it lives up to that price tag in terms of just being durable. There's a beautiful kind of snap feeling when you close it, fold the screen and bring it together. And then, of course, they've introduced some Gemini cool features. So one I like is that when you unfold it and you hold it out, the outside of the camera, of course, of the phone has camera and screen at the same time. So when you point that at somebody, especially little kids, one side of the screen on it can play little animated characters to try to elicit a smile or a laugh. Well, you've got the other side that's all screen, so you can actually point the camera and line your photograph. I love that feature, the ability that not only do you have the magic of a foldable screen, but they're coming up with uses for it.
The Samsung Z Fold doesn't have that snap. It's quite cumbersome to open and close, but the quality of the screen seems to be really good and the cameras are good. How do they compare?
In that sense, yes, both phones have excellent kind of pixel screen quality, excellent, in terms of what you're looking at. You're watching live streams. You can watch 4 live streams with the Google Fold, for example, because you got screens on both sides of the phone. It's good quality in terms of that. But I think where Google excels is just the durability of the hardware. When it closes and you get that snap, it's like a compact. It's just the way that it just closes very securely. I like that.
Yeah, the old flip phones, you can kind of flip them open with your wrist. I was very disappointed when I got mine that you cannot do that with the new phones. It's not quite the same feeling. Before we're done here, we got to touch on very quickly in a minute, Spider-Man. All you Spider-Man fans, you can do it legit.
I love this. So this is a new toy that came out from Hasbro using new web technology. If you are a Spider-Man fan like I am, and as a kid you always dreamt of being able to shoot webbing from your wrist, this actually does that. So this is a device you strap onto your forearm. It has 2 little packets of fluid on it. It then mixes those fluids to create this brand new gelatine mixture. And just like in the comic books, you curl your 2 middle fingers down towards your wrist, you cock your wrist, and then it shoots out web from your wrist towards about 6 feet away at any kind of target you want. It starts off as fluid. When it hits the air, it turns into gel, and then when it lands, it turns into webbing. And I mean webbing, like when you come up and you look at it, you see little threads stretching across little gaps and spaces like that. It's sticky, little rivulets of fluid on it. Amazing. And then when it dries, it's something that you can just sort of sweep and wipe away, much like a cobweb. But you have that experience. You can actually shoot webbing from your wrists. I love it.
You're way too excited about this. Sounds like every parent's worst nightmare. It's like what are those little spray string things like that you get?
Yes.
That sounds like a great idea until you spray them and you're like, oh no, this is an absolute disaster to clean up.
Well, and of course, you have to buy refills to get the web fluid to it. But what I like that Hasbro did very smart is that you can change out the packet so you can convert it into basically a squirt gun using water. So you can fill it full of water, and then you can shoot Spider-Man style water at people. So if you're having a squirt gun fight, you can walk around doing Spidey moves, thwip, 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 rather than everybody else running around just shooting little pistols.
I love it. Kris Abel, thanks for popping in. Appreciate you.
Oh, no problem.
Some new phones, flip phones, and if you want to be like Spider-Man, absolutely, you can be like Spider-Man as well. Shane Hewitt and the Night Shift. I'm Shane Hewitt in Ottawa, and it is Throwback Thursday, and it's 2003. Where were you in 2003, and what were you up to back then? You can text it in, 71010, and let us know. We've got a big, long list of everybody's texted in. Thank you very much. Tiffany is on there as well. Tiffany says, I was 13 years old, 2003, spending time with the cottage in Kinmount. And then another text from Ian in Brampton says, I was working and the power went out. That was the best of times. And you've called it, Ian. You named it. That's our inspiration for our Throwback Thursday, the great power outage of 2003. And we're going to chat about it next with Ed Conroy.